Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the Hebrew Woman Show. I am your host, Renaissance Woman, aka Ren Judah, and there is so much to cover today. There are so many things going on, and I don't even know if we're going to be able to get to them all, but we will give it the old college try. Okay, so the for the new people here, the purpose of this channel is to explore your biblical principles. That is what we do here. I use this slideshow pretty much every show because I always want to bring home these founding principles for this channel. And because these scriptures are important to me, they are my guide, my North Star that I try to use to help me navigate my way through systems and situations. And one of the key tenets for me is 2 Corinthians 13:5. The scripture there tells us to examine ourselves. 2 Corinthians 13:5 says, examine yourselves whether ye be of the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how Christ is in you, except you be reprobate. And so for me, that means taking time to reflect on my actions, the when I'm encountering situations, especially if I find myself in the same situation repeatedly, like I found myself back in the situation, even not just with relationships, but even at work, different type of work environments. If you find yourself going around that mountain like the children of Israel over and over again, it is important that you take the time to examine yourself and see why am I here again. And I just want to say to you guys, starting off, if you look over in the chat, I have shared the channels to the Working Class Chronicles and the Renaissance Woman Show. Those are my other channels, and the reason why I have three channels is because each piece of content is different, and I want to try to keep things separate. So what we do over here on we I'm primarily on here on the Sabbath, and this is my work, for the Most High. This work here is dedicated to that, building up my spiritual base and foundation. And on all my channels, I always like to share what am I learning, what things am I exploring, and I share with my audience, even my navigating my health situation. I was just talking, a part of the examination is that, finding myself in a hostile work environment over the last year, I have I gained so much weight, and this is the heaviest I have ever been in my whole life. And then just dealing with the um shame that comes with the obesity, the stress, the anxiety, your system being out of whack, hair loss, all the stress and toxic things that come. Not, and it's bad enough that you're dealing with, the toxic work environment, but then the toll that it took on me health wise is something that I'm trying to come out of, and I'm recovering from it. It's a stress. It's been a struggle. So I am, chronicling that process because I think it's important. And I do like to, the Bible tells us that we're supposed to be apt to teach, that the older women are supposed to teach the younger women. And so going through what I'm going through, I was like, I have a responsibility to not be a hypocrite and to practice what I preach. So I'm sharing these things with you all so that it is important that you do not make the same mistakes I made, because there's a lot to learn. And we started with the Maxwell Leadership Series, which I know I'm supposed to be doing on Sabbath night, on Friday nights, but I will have to tell you guys, I have had so much going on in my life that I had not been able to fulfill that part of my goal. But I am hoping, most high will, that we'll be able to get back on track with the next chapter. As a matter of fact, I will see. Maybe we'll be able to get it in during the week to catch up, so we'll be ready for next Sabbath. So if you are reading the book, I'd love to hear from you and let me know. If so, for me, I think it's interesting. A lot of times, my journey kind of mimics what happens in my life directly. Like I felt like when it comes to the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, I got stuck on certain parts, and it literally was part of my struggle with where I was or am leadership wise professionally. And so, if you are reading the book, or if you finished it and you've done all the exercises, I'd love you to share your journey with me and tell me what are you working on now, because I haven't been able to move on from the 21 irrefutable laws of leaderships, and I believe that that is purposeful. As always, you can email me at sister7@gmail.com. And I have to tell you, because I know we're talking about sensitive subjects, especially when it comes to workplace situations, you can always email me. And as a rule, unless you explicitly tell me you want your name shouted out or you're okay with being shouted out, I never mention the names of people who email me and ask me questions. As a matter of fact, what I try to do is I'll read some of your email and then I'll paraphrase, or just kind of talk it out where I'm not even quoting you verbatim, because I do know these topics are sensitive, and a lot of people are just concerned about it exposing them at work. And especially if you know me personally, you may feel like your question is so specific that people are going to know it's you. So if that is a concern of yours, I promise you I will always protect your identity. And you can always email me anonymously or shoot me a message. If you're following me on Facebook, you can always message me there as well. So anyway, this is the email, sistah7@gmail.com. So without further ado, we'll move on to our other principle here. We train ourselves to think biblically and not emotionally, because we know that the biblical thinking, we're supposed to weigh our feelings against the law. We're not just supposed to be moving, not that we don't have emotions, and it's not that you're not supposed to feel, but you definitely want to make sure that you are in keeping with the law, because we are commanded to be wise as serpents, but harmless as a dove. Okay. And of course, we know Ephesians 4:26 says, be angry, but sin not. Okay. Be angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Okay. So here we strive to be women of Titus. Titus 2 and chapter 1 verses 1-5 talks about the behavior that we are supposed to embody. And one thing I love about Titus, because when I participate in a lot of conversations, especially when you get into these gender war conversations, they're always, especially when it gets down to the Bible, the main complaint from a lot of women are, well, what about the men? The Bible has instructions for men and women. This is not a book bashing women. And I do know that there are groups of men who like to use the Bible to berate, belittle, and harass women, but that behavior itself is biblically inaccurate. Okay. All of us, men and women, we are supposed to do what the first verse tells us. It says, but speak things which become sound doctrine. So being verbally abusive and aggressive, or physically aggressive and abusive, that is not sound doctrine, and that is not sound speech. It's not good speech. It says that the aged men are supposed to be grave, sober, temperate. I'm sorry, let me read that correct. That the aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity. You're supposed to be charitable. You're supposed to be patient. And that the aged women likewise. So that means all of us are supposed to embody those behaviors, and we be in behavior that becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to too much wine, but teachers of good things. And so that is what I strive to do. I want to be a teacher of good things, and you hopefully you are too. So I always go with, and this is a case right now, everybody is talking about the situation with Nolan Wells. And I think Proverbs 11:14 is a great illustration for us all, because for me, this is also reminiscent not only of other cases that we are dealing with, and we can talk about. I see a lot of people making a lot of comparisons to the movie. My husband even thought of the movie A Spoonful of Chocolate. People are comparing it to the Kendrick Johnson case, because there's trauma there. So I think we have to talk about the gaslighting that occurs when people are triggered by these incidents. And I think even amongst ourselves, we do a lot of gaslighting. But for me, like these scriptures where you talk about, you have to teach your children discernment. And people say that all the time, it's about discernment. But what does that mean? And how are you teaching them? Because where do they get their discernment from? They get their discernment from what you're teaching them. And if you're not teaching them, in my opinion, and I just based on what I know my life, these biblical principles, if you're not teaching them Torah, what is their guiding star? What are you teaching them? Because Proverbs 11:14 says, where no counsel is, the people fall, but in a multitude of counselors there is safety. You want to train your children to where they know how to surround themselves with wise counsel, where they surround themselves with good friends, right? Nolan didn't have that, obviously, because those boys left him. They left him to die, right? They didn't just left him on the island, allegedly, right? So, but we'll get into that in a minute. But you definitely need to make sure that you are teaching your children these principles so that they are able to learn discernment, because it's easy to tell people they need to have discernment, but where are they going to get that from? Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keepeth the law is happy. So teach your kids the law so that they can be happy. We will be continuing our leadership workshop series. Just kind of fell off a little bit because there's a lot going on, but we're definitely going to get back in alignment here. And hopefully, and I can't say what's going to happen, but I will do my best, because this is definitely a tumultuous time for me. And I have to tell you guys that. And I'm just trying to share with you all as much as I can. And hopefully you're trying to grow like I am. And I'm going to share my health journey and all of these with you. And for me, one of the biggest things that has come from all of this, going through the transition that I'm going through, is it was for me to understand that I'm not here for comfort. I need to seek the kingdom first. And so that is my priority. This is not the final destination, and that I do have a divine mission, and that part of that mission for me is to share and so that we endure together. One of the principles that I try to stand on, which is led me to where I am also, is Isaiah 58:1. It says, cry aloud and spare not, lift up thy voice like a trumpet, show my people their transgressions and the house of Jacob their sins. I will not stand silent in the face of wrongdoing. I won't do that. You are biblically mandated to do the same. We have a responsibility to speak out when we see wrongdoing, and even in the case of in all of these cases. So let me get to what everybody is talking about. Everybody wants to know. I want to know what happened to Nolan. And the conversations that are happening around this situation are, I think people are asking a lot of legitimate questions, but I also think some of the behavior that I'm seeing is disturbing. I want to remind people that whether you believe in interracial dating or not, whether you think that, because I even see the argument of, should we be defending people who probably would not have stood with us? And I want to remind everybody, the civil rights movement didn't happen because the majority of people wanted justice. Slavery was not abolished because the majority of people stood up for justice. When you are even dealing with workplace situations and you're unionizing, the majority of the people are not going to participate. When you see people out on the strike line, the majority of the people working there aren't out picketing. It's always a small minority. And yeah, it does make you angry, because the people who are remaining silent, who don't want to get there, who don't want to be seen, who don't want to stand up and be counted, it is upsetting to a lot of people to watch them benefit from the work that you do, but that is what happens. And we do have to talk about the fear that keeps people silent, because I do understand that too. And it is difficult, even in, I can say, in my own personal experiences with hostile work environments, or injustice. You're always like, I know these people see what's happening. They're dealing with the same thing. Why won't they speak up? There is a reason for the fear, and a lot of it has to do with the structural gaslighting that takes place, and the institutional gaslighting that takes place. And for the people who are saying, well, these are black people who are living in predominantly black neighborhood, they got what they got, you want to hate, like, listen, that's just like, for us, people who are teachers of good things and who are practicing this faith, we know Christ came for the lost sheep. So some of the sheep are out here, they're lost, and we're here to spread the gospel. If they don't receive you, what did Christ tell you to do? To shake the dust off your feet. But I am not going to say that we should not. You don't know. I don't know if these people have stood with black people in movements and situations. And right now, I don't think it's the time to make that judgment or that decision or even talk about it, because these people just lost their son and they're grieving. And so for me, the important thing for me is just to pray for these people, and we try to support them the best that they can. This is what we know, reportedly, allegedly. These were Nolan's friends, and this girl was the last one he was seen with. I don't even know if these were the kids there. So, because one thing about social media, there's always a lot of things going around, and we don't know what's fact and fiction. We do know that Al Sharpton has gotten involved. The family hired Ben Crump. One of the things I want to point out to people who are saying, well, why does this family keep saying this is not a racial issue? They are saying it's not a racial issue. I think people are forgetting that these people are trying to move strategically, because they already understand that Al Sharpton, anybody that has been around for 10 minutes knows that Al Sharpton and Ben Crump are called race hustlers. And so people have a negative perception of them. But strategically, when you have a situation like this and you don't think you're going to get justice, they are two prominent figures that you can have come to the table and get your situation the level of tension and spotlight that you need. They are going to bring the press, and this puts pressure on the system, because let's just be honest, the timeline is problematic. As soon as Nolan's body was recovered, the sheriff came out and made a statement and said there was no foul play. Well, how do you know that, sir? You haven't even conducted an investigation. Not only that, the autopsy hasn't even been performed. You don't know what happened with the body for you to make, and you could be right, but it was so irresponsible, and we can't gaslight our own community and then while they're doing it, telling you nothing to see here. Because one thing about this is what you would call a systemic inversion. So what they do is they erase the metrics, right? They erase the metrics and break the yardstick, and then they tell you there never was a problem. There's nothing to see here. There wasn't any distance here. There's nothing to measure here. And then so these, like, the claims don't exist anymore, and you're just supposed to go on and exist in silence. It's just not fair. And so I think we want to hold the family to a standard that the average person doesn't have to navigate. And so they have found themselves in this situation, and they're trying to navigate it to the best they can. And people need to remember that they still live in this community. I get people are drawing parallels to Kendrick Johnson. Kendrick Johnson, this case is 13 years old, and it is still pending. This family is still looking for justice 13 years later. And so the memory, the trauma that our community is experiencing is real. And so I just want to remind bloggers and everybody out here talking that you don't be so hard on the people, because they're trying to figure it out. They are literally in survival mode. They so I created this image because I just wanted you all to deal with the reality, the captive reality of a minority group living in a predominantly white community. So people were saying the young man that was interviewed, why is he and this family steady saying this is not a racial issue? Because they understand that that mob is going to come out and is going to attack them. They still have kids in school. They still live and work in this community, and they're trying to hedge their bets and navigate this as best they can without enraging these people and having to deal with the backlash that happens and targets them. Hey Zell, thanks for coming up. I was just talking about all of the questions and concerns that the community has about the Nolan Wells situation. And I just want, and what I'm addressing here, just from a spiritual perspective, is to ask that everybody stop attacking the family because they don't like them saying this isn't a racial issue. We understand systemically that this is a racial issue. We understand it, we know it. However, they are in the middle of the fight. And to just jump out and say the police department is racist. Listen, this is Mississippi. We know where they are. They know where they are. But they do understand they already have 2 lightning rods standing with them. And if they come out, they're already going to have a problem. They already have to seek an independent autopsy. Luckily, and it is by the grace of the Most High that they have that phone instead of the police department, because now they are sending it off to get it forensically examined. If the police had it, they probably wouldn't even get that. They wouldn't even know that anything had happened with the phone. So that they are trying to walk this, they have to slow walk this. So how are you today, Zell?
Hey, how you doing? I'm pretty good. I'm pretty
I'm
good.
fine. I just, I'm just watching all of the commentary, and I get it. But I think one of the things that bloggers do that is concerning to me is they bring in too many elements that are not relevant at the time. People, if there are, because I've heard the assertion that one of the kids is they're from a family that has a clan affiliation. I get it, but I mean, like right now,
Hmm.
can we just go with what we know instead of what I heard? Because what I heard can really create a dynamic. Because here we are, where I talk about we're dealing with structural and institutional gaslighting. We are already being told that. So just think about it. Even in the workplace, when people talk about racism and discrimination, one of the number one problems with a lot of EEOC filings is
Hmm.
that people won't name a thing, and so they wonder why their case can't move forward. Or people who file their EEOC claims themselves always wonder on the back end why they can't get an attorney to take their case. And a lot of times is because the attorney prefers to do the EEOC filing, because most of the time the people reporting, especially us, we will not claim racism because we are being gaslit and nobody wants to be out. You're pulling the race card, so people aren't reporting racism. What they're doing is they're talking around it, they're talking at it, instead of saying I am being harassed, discriminated against, they're not naming the thing. And in certain situations, naming the thing too soon, and I think that's the concern and why people don't report properly, is they're afraid if they say the thing too soon, they're going to be attacked. And you are attacked. And that I believe that this is part of the issue that we're seeing when that young man, and you notice how TMZ immediately jumped on. That's what they led with. The young man, I can't think of his names right now. He says this is not a racial issue. The media we are trying to train Black people to believe that if you say this is not a racial issue, that's your way of keeping white people at large from being angry at you. And it is, because as soon as you do, especially right now in Trump's America, they're coming for you. And now you're going to have to start dealing with threats. Now you're going to have to start dealing with being made. They have this is an invert, and why I called it a racial inversion is because now the people who are being victimized by racism are being further victimized into believing that they're doing something wrong in reporting the racism and discrimination. I think people need to keep that in mind. These people are not saying it's racism is not evidence of the absence of racism. So them not coming out saying, yeah, the sheriff's department is racist, and this is them coming out and not doing it doesn't erase the evidence of racism. They are just trying to move strategically. They are in hostile territory. They are in a predominantly white neighborhood, a predominantly white community. They're calculating their risk. And I'm not making excuses for them, but I just need people to have some empathy and understand the reality that they're living in. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do. I do. I mean, it's kind of because I sit back and I think about that, and it's like, if I was in that situation, how would I choose to approach it? And I honestly, I probably would lean towards my lawyer and say, "Hey, what do we need to do in this?" Because, do you want to assume it's racism? Is there a reason that I should, accuse their friend? I mean, it's a because that is it's so easy, and it's so easy to lean towards that, especially with our society how it is.
And we know it's there. We know it's real. We know it. We absolutely know it. However, this is the early stages. And in any case, you got to let them make their moves. Wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. You let it play out, because as soon as you start, don't warn them. Let them do it. Because I think for me, the sheriff already showed you what the play is. You just recovered the body. How do you come out and immediately say there's nothing here? How do you know? You haven't done an investigation. This you've gone straight into protection mode. And then when we find out that one of the kids, their parents is a judge, of course they're in protection mode. Now, we can talk about some of the legitimate questions that people have right now. That timeline, the timeline is problematic. And as a matter of fact, let me see if I can pull up the timeline, because here's one of the things. Now, I did notice that the boy that was interviewed, if you even his statement was kind of contradictory to me, and it almost made me feel like somebody sent him to do that interview. And for him to immediately, when they asked him, is this a racial issue? He said, I don't want to answer that. That was it was really, and it let me know right now, you know why he looks biracial anyway. But number two, he didn't want to answer that because he knows where the hell he lives. And if he had said it was a racial issue, people act like words don't have consequences. If that boy had said it was a racial issue, more than likely when he went back to school, he was going to get that business, okay? Like, we're not thinking about this. We're not thinking about the larger fact that these people live in a predominantly white community. And if they make the wrong step and say the same or the wrong words, they're going to have to deal with the consequences. So I'm going to go through this timeline right now of what is being reported that I know. Well, I have been able to glean so far. We know on July 4th, sometime around in the afternoon and evening, they went to Horn Island on a boat. Nolan went to the island with his friends. And here's what I don't know. What time did they come back home? Because when those kids came home and they claim he decided to stay behind, which we still can't get any explanation as to why they left him behind. And just common sense, listen, we just saw a video of Big Tigger rolling around on the floor with his wife, tussling over a telephone. A cell phone. You want me to believe that this dude told them that, yeah, leave me here without my phone and my keys. So not only can he not call somebody if he needs somebody to come and get him off the island, he can't even get in his own damn house because they have his phone and his keys. So that's the first thing. Just knowing, listen, you leave work. If you leave your cell phone at home on accident, you are going all the way back home. You don't even want to be at work all day without your damn cell phone. So I'm supposed to believe he wanted to be on this island without any form of communication. I'm supposed to believe that. So we know that they went there July 4th. So on July 5th around midnight, Nolan's mom reports him missing. And the county's office, says the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, after he fails to return, July 6th, Nolan's body is recovered off of Horn Island. So apparently he went missing on the 4th. His mom reports him missing on the 5th. And I'm not quite sure if he was reported missing that night. Let's see if Gemini can look it up for us. Was Nolan Wells' did his friends report him missing that night? Did anybody report him missing on July 4th? Because that's a question for me too. Because it says at midnight at 12, his mother.
Yes, Nolan Wells was reported missing on the night of July 4th. The exact sequence of reports that night occurred as follows. The friends. Around 11 p.m. on July 4th, one of the friends who had been on the boat trip contacted Nolan's mother, Christine Wonsley, to inform her that Nolan was missing. The mother. Immediately following that contact, his mother formally reported his disappearance to law enforcement authorities that same Saturday night, July 4th, after he failed to return home. She also posted a public plea for information on Facebook in the early morning hours of July 5th.
So my next question is, what time did those kids leave the island and then suddenly decide to report him missing? I think they were saying 7.
Based on public statements and the investigation timeline, the Friends group left Horn Island at approximately 4:30 p.m. on July 4th. According to a statement released by the mother of one of the friends, Jackson County Chancery Judge Ashley Cole, the boat had an issue with its bilge pump around that time, and they claimed Nolan chose to stay behind on the island to catch a ride back later with a different group. The decision to notify Nolan's mother occurred hours later. One of the friends finally called Christine Wonsley at approximately 11 p.m. that night to report that Nolan had not made it back to the mainland. This created a roughly 6.5-hour gap between the time the boat left the island and the time the family was first alerted to his disappearance.
So why is there a discrepancy? I keep hearing people say something about something that happened at 7 o'clock or 7:30. Where does that timeline come from? Because I guess what I'm saying, I heard that all of the kids met up at one location, and I believe the press conference, the mother was saying that all of them deleted their Snapchat or whatever it is that they were on. They all deleted it that day. And I'm thinking that's July 4th that they deleted these messages. When was this? It's searching. Because there's just so many things that just don't make sense to me. Just using common sense and the timeline.
The timeline contradictions and the deletion of digital evidence are the central focus of the family's demand for a deeper investigation. The Snapchat and message deletions. The allegations regarding deleted messages specifically refer to Nolan's own cell phone, not just the friends' accounts. The discovery. Nolan's mother, Christine Wonsley, used the Life 360 app to track his phone's location. She discovered the phone was already back on the mainland, located at the house of one of the friends who had been on the boat. The missing data. When the family recovered the phone and reviewed it within 24 hours of his disappearance, they found that text messages had been wiped. Furthermore, Nolan had 2 separate Snapchat accounts. Despite him being a frequent uploader who routinely documented his outings, both accounts were completely empty of any photos, videos, or history from that day. The timing. The family and their attorney, Ben Crump, assert that these deletions occurred on July 4th, during the window of time after the friends returned to the mainland with Nolan's phone, but before the family was notified of his disappearance, where the 7 o'clock/7:30 p.m. timeline comes from. The 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. window is the critical gap where the group's narrative conflicts with the physical tracking of Nolan's phone. The friends claim they left Horn Island at roughly 4:30 p.m. due to a broken bilge pump, leaving Nolan behind. However, the phone's Life 360 tracking data and local accounts indicate that the group arrived back on the mainland, met up at a single residence, and accounted for Nolan's phone on land during that early evening window, around 7 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. The core discrepancy the family is highlighting is this. If the kids were back on land with Nolan's phone by 7:30 p.m., why did they wait until 11 p.m. to call his mother and report that he was missing? This leaves a multi-hour block of time where the phone was active on land before the family or law enforcement were ever alerted.
The other issue I have is, why was his phone and his keys? It seems like there is some kind of collaboration. His phone and keys were retrieved from two different sets of people. Now they said the keys and the phone were on the boat. Why do two different sets of people have the phone and keys?
The fact that Nolan's phone and keys were left behind and ended up in the hands of his friends is one of the most highly contested details in this investigation. The family and their attorney, Ben Crump, have explicitly raised this exact issue, pointing out that the narrative provided by the friends does not align with the physical recovery of his belongings. The core tactical weaknesses in the group's story. The official explanation given by the friends is that Nolan's items were simply left on the boat when they departed the island. However, the physical evidence and the manner in which these items were retrieved exposed several logical gaps. The phone retrieval. Nolan's mother tracked the phone's active location via the Life 360 app to the mainland residence of one of the friends. It was not voluntarily brought to the family. A friend of Nolan's mother had to physically go to the location on land to retrieve the phone. The collaboration dynamic. If the friends truly believed Nolan stayed behind voluntarily to hitch a ride with another group, leaving his primary lifelines, his communication, phone, and his means of transport/access, keys, on their boat, makes no structural sense. The bystander video contradiction. The narrative that the items were just left on the boat is directly challenged by bystander video circulating from the island. Ben Crump noted that video evidence appears to show Nolan in a verbal altercation with someone on the island, explicitly demanding that they give him his phone back. The bureaucratic/investigative status. By separating the items and keeping them on land while Nolan remained unaccounted for, the group created a window of exclusive control over his digital data. The family's legal team has stated they are hiring independent forensic experts to extract the phone's metadata to determine exactly when the data was wiped and who handled the device during those missing hours between 4:30 p.m. and 11 p.m. Currently, the friends have retained legal counsel, and the Jackson County Sheriff's Department has stated that they are investigating the timeline discrepancies, but do not officially suspect foul play at this stage.
So my last question was, with the social media deletions, did they happen on July 4th? Because if they happened on July 4th and July 5th, this is just my opinion, it just signals to me they know exactly what happened to him. Because why would they, if my friend is just missing and I don't know where they are, my first reaction is not, I'm going to delete my social media and contact a criminal defense attorney. Like, does this make sense to anybody? Okay, or have they given an explanation for that?
You are so correct. Honestly, I think a lot of this, they know exactly what happened.
They do know what happened, that boy.
But what it is they don't want to come across, I think, and I'm talking about both sides, but I think they're playing chess, not checkers. So I think they're saying they know that this is racism, but they don't want to come out on the front end saying that's what it is.
Right.
They're trying to come out as though, hey, we're really looking at this and we genuinely want to know what the problem is. We're not going to turn this into a social media thing, and we're not going to start. So we're not trying to start some type of a riot. We don't want to be viewed that way. However, I think on the back end, they know exactly what it is and they're moving accordingly. And I think both sides are moving accordingly. They have lawyers that are telling them exactly, you need to do this, you need to do this. We don't want anybody showing, because if I had to guess, the parents, their lawyer immediately, one of the first things they did was went to go and look at the history of those kids' social media accounts. That's one of the first things out. Who are these kids? What's their history? What have they done or said? And all that's typically going to be on all of their social media, which is why.
And at what point did they gain legal counsel? What point did they start deleting their accounts?
If I had to guess, almost immediately, because this is going to be all about. They don't want to be tried in public opinion. And in the court of public opinion. I mean, and they know what these people, they already know. They've seen it. They want to try to control it, because if it gets bad and these kids go to court, then how do you not find them guilty? It would be an absolute mess. And I just think that they're, in light of a lot of stuff, especially because this is Mississippi, It has been known for certain things in the past. They do not want to get that they don't want those accusations at all. This is actually going to be a really interesting case, I think, to watch to see how
Yeah,
this whole
I think
thing.
somebody's going to break because something is wrong
Yeah,
here, and that's why I was asking, and like I'm gonna let it answer that question because if it can search the news and see, because I want to know when did those kids delete their social medias? Because if it happened July 4th and July 5th, keep in mind Nolan's body hadn't been recovered yet, so that lets you know they know what happened to him.
and I mean, think about this, especially if you're the kids' lawyers, you don't want them even talking. You don't want them accidentally saying something. I mean, because there is something to be said. If I had to guess, there's something out there that they should not be saying, they shouldn't have been doing. There's
Mm-hmm.
more to this story that we absolutely do not know.
Yep.
And it is eventually going to come out, but they want to control how and when it comes out. And so this is why they're doing this, I do believe.
Exactly. Let's see what answers Gemini find. Is searching.
Your assessment points directly to the core vulnerability in the narrative put forward by the group. Legally and tactically, you are analyzing this exactly the way an investigator or a high-level strategist looks at behavioral anomalies. The core vulnerability, behavioral inconsistency. From a tactical risk perspective, the group's actions deviate entirely from standard human behavior when a peer is genuinely missing. 1. The reasonable reaction. If a friend is simply lagging behind, missing a ride, or uncontactable, the natural response is to flood their channels with messages. Where are you? Did you get a ride? Call us when you land. 2. The evidentiary reality. Instead, the physical evidence demonstrates that inside the critical multi-hour window on July 4th, after the group returned to land, but before Nolan's mother was called at 11 p.m., Nolan's phone was manipulated. Text messages were wiped, and both of his Snapchat accounts were completely cleared of any media or history from that day. Have they given an explanation? No. The individuals who were on the boat with Nolan have not provided any public explanation for why his text history was wiped, or why his active Snapchat data disappeared within that 24-hour window. Instead of addressing these specific digital anomalies, their legal defense strategy has shifted completely to institutional and procedural insulation, immediate retention of counsel. Rather than cooperating directly with the family's inquiries regarding the phone, the friends immediately retain criminal defense attorneys. Their lawyers have completely closed off communication, preventing the family's independent investigators from interviewing them. Deflection to the official theory. The public statements issued on behalf of the group, primarily through family members, including a local chancery judge, strictly stick to the narrative that they left the island at 4:30 p.m. due to a mechanical issue with a bilge pump. They claim Nolan chose to stay behind voluntarily. They have completely bypassed the question of who had physical possession of Nolan's phone while it was being wiped on land. The tactical advantage. Subpoenaing the metadata, because the other side has clammed up and hired
Oh,
defense counsel.
I got that part, but I'm asking when did they delete and change their personal social media accounts? Do we know that? Because for me, that is the main question. When did those kids delete their? Because the mom said that one of the other apps that all of them were
To
using.
clarify the exact timeline based on public records and official statements, no, the friends' personal social media accounts were not deleted on the night of July 4th. The widespread deactivations of the friends and their families' personal profiles occurred days later, during the week of July 6th, after Nolan's body was recovered, and the case drew intense national media attention. The confirmed details regarding these personal account changes show a clear distinction between the two events. 1. Nolan's phone versus the friends' personal accounts. Nolan's phone, July 4th. The high-velocity data erasure, specifically the wiped text messages and empty Snapchat accounts, happened exclusively on Nolan's physical device during the 6.5-hour window before his mother was notified. The friends' personal profiles, post-July 7th, the deletion and deactivation of the friends' public profiles did not happen proactively on the night of the incident. It happened reactively once the public search turned into a death investigation. 2. The explanation given by the group. The only formal public acknowledgement regarding social media deletion came from Jackson County Chancery Judge Ashley Cole, the mother of Warren, one of the friends on the boat. Following intense online scrutiny after Nolan's body was found on Monday, July 7th, she issued a statement confirming she deactivated her personal Facebook account. Her official explanation stated, safety concerns. She claimed the deactivations were a direct response to a heightened emotional state on social media and threats to her family's safety.
So let me pause that. So my question is, Nolan's mother said that the kids were all on a specific app, and she said that that night that they all turned it off. So can you clear that up for me?
The specific app Nolan's mother, Christine Wansley, referred to regarding location tracking and history discrepancies is Life 360. To clear up the exact distinction between how the location app and the social media accounts played out that night, the location tracking, Life 360. The family used the Life 360 app to actively track Nolan's location. On the night of July 4th, the app showed that Nolan's phone was already back on the mainland at a friend's house, even though the friends claimed Nolan had stayed behind on the island. According to the mother, the phone's physical location history captured by Life 360 completely contradicted what the friends claimed they were seeing or doing on Snapchat.
I'm going to have to, okay, so it's something to do with Snapchat. Wait a minute, let me hear what.
During the trip. The media deletion. Snapchat. When the mother and her sister checked Nolan's 2 Snapchat accounts less than 24 hours after the trip, they discovered the accounts had been completely cleared. Because Snapchat photos and videos normally remain visible for up to 24 hours, the total absence of any media or history from that day indicated the data had been actively wiped or the account settings manipulated during that specific time frame. The core issue the family raised is that the digital footprint on the tracking app, Life 360, proved the phone was on land.
How did the kids get in Nolan's phone? Is the phone unlocked? Did they ever discuss how that people would have been able to access his phone?
The short answer is *NO. Neither the family's legal team nor law enforcement have publicly detailed exactly how the phone was accessed, nor have they stated whether it was completely unlocked or if the group knew his passcode. While the exact method of entry hasn't been discussed by investigators or the family, the public statements from the family's news conferences and interviews highlight several specific elements regarding the handling of Nolan's phone. The erasure dynamic. When Nolan's mother and aunt inspected his phone less than 24 hours after his disappearance, they found text history wiped and his 2 Snapchat accounts completely empty. In digital forensics, clearing specific third-party applications like Snapchat typically requires either an already unlocked device, direct knowledge of the user's account credentials, or a phone that lacked a secure passcode lock altogether. The group's silence. The friends who had possession of the phone immediately retained criminal defense attorneys and closed off communication, meaning they have not provided any explanation or statement regarding how the phone was handled or why the data was missing.
Yeah, that is just too much. So like I think until we get answers to this, and that probably won't come out until this investigation is wrapped up. This is probably going to drag on because there's just too many holes. But she said something during the press conference though, but maybe it was just Snapchat and the 360 app. But
now, where was his body found?
Just on like it, they said it washed up somewhere like on the island. It ended up, the tide brought it back in, and they're kind of disputing that. They have an issue with that, like implying that maybe he was dumped. And then this is why we go back to why people were bringing up Kendrick. It reminded people of the Kendrick situation. And I want to tell people, like, stop gaslighting people about the organ harvesting thing, because you literally just had the federal government come out and acknowledge, the Department of Health came out and acknowledged that they are actively, I have the information that I'm going to share that on the Renaissance Woman show, but the DHS came out and said that they had to intervene with how organ harvesting is happening. So people are blowing this out of proportion. And there was a story that Larry Black right here in St. Louis, at St. Louis University, if his surgeon had not intervened, if the surgery team were about to harvest his organs. So he says he still has trouble sleeping at night. So people aren't, just like, stop gaslighting people into making it feel like they're making these parallels. And I know, or talking about movies like A Spoonful of Chocolate. These things are coming to people's mind. And Quentin Tarantino didn't make that movie for no reason, because this is something that is happening in our communities. And so they're able to, and it's crazy, exploit our traumas, make them into movies. They're into all these things. And then Black people will get gaslit and made fun of when they bring up these things like it isn't real, or like the parents weren't supposed to be upset that his body was stuffed with newspaper. And just like those families that with the prisons at the in the jail where their organs were harvested without the family's permission. That like these things, these are things that are actually documented and you can find. They're not making it up. It's legitimate.
Mm.
So I just think everybody, rather we just go with what we know, what we can find out, and we don't know anything right now. So a lot of the things that are being said, I really think people need to just hold on and stop attacking the family. Though that is not making any sense to me.
Yeah. Now,
You know,
the only thing I will say is it foul play? Absolutely. But exactly who and what is the question. Exactly how it happened. Do I think that his friends are 100% innocent? No. The question is, what act can they get somebody to break? Because the fact that they have his cell phone is
mhm.
problematic. To me, that alone is says a whole lot. Why would you leave? How did you even get his phone? Why would he give you his phone?
Well,
I
they
mean,
claim because they were swimming and stuff. Because the other boy says that he left his phone on the boat too. But if you know, I don't leave my phone on the boat. But if I know I'm going to stay, I would have
mm-hmm.
asked for my phone back. And they say, even though
Yep.
that one boy says that Jalen, he notice the words that he used. Everybody keeps saying that he said that he wasn't involved in the altercation. He said there was more than one altercation, and he said he didn't believe. So meaning he doesn't know if Wells was involved in the altercation or not, because the family is saying they hear his voice in the background demanding his phone.
Well, see, my question becomes, why did he stay on the island? And if there were other people on the island, how you got to find those people now?
Somebody, that's what I'm
Um,
saying. Somebody saw something, and I'm pretty
yeah,
sure it may be in the hands of the police. And if it is in the hands of the police, good luck getting it. But
yeah,
maybe those people will come forward if they don't. If it's not, if the evidence isn't preceded. But I do know certain groups of people tend to stick together. But they somebody saw something. He didn't just disappear.
right,
Somebody saw
exactly.
what happened to him, and I believe those kids know what happened to him.
Oh, they do.
You know, it's just that all the contradictions just don't make sense. You know, and then no. So at any rate, but I will say this: I also know this, and the mother of the one of the kids is a judge. You know, and I
Mm.
remember Oprah did this show. Even if you're innocent, you should never talk to the police without an attorney. I know that.
Hmm.
I can tell you that being in law enforcement, I don't care what's going on. I'm not talking to the police. And that's the person who has been in law enforcement, because we have literally seen people thinking they're being helpful and they're reporting. And when there's an investigation going on, you go in and you talk to the police. And then next thing you know, they're accusing you of something. So I'm not going to say I'm not mad that they retain counsel. That's what anybody with any common sense would do. You know, especially if but in the case of a missing person, I think that's a little bit different. Why do I need if because if that implies foul play? We're just talking about, hey, my friend is missing. I don't think that's the same thing. I'm not going to talk to an attorney if it's a criminal investigation. That's the key here.
Mm.
If it's a search and rescue, hell yeah, I'm gonna talk to the police. My friend is missing. In this case, they lawyered up, so that's why I believe they know what happened to him.
Yeah, this is just. I will say this, which is unfortunate, is this just goes to show when you think you have friends, people that you think are your friends, you just don't need to go off anywhere by yourself with others that like that.
Well, he
You
doesn't think
have
he
to be
was by
careful.
himself. He thought he was with his
Yeah,
friends, right?
yeah, yeah.
See, so this is what we're talking about. And that is one of the reasons why I led with when I led with our normal scriptures. Because people do, they'll even gaslight you with the discernment argument. You need to have discernment. Well, what does that mean? How do I have that? That has to be taught. And we teach that through biblical principles,
Mm,
right? Like you
yeah.
just, and I do think following your intuition is a part of that. The last thing that we covered this week was this whole accountability and elderhood accountability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Elderhood and being an elder and accountability, because I thought that Trick Daddy's behavior talking about India Ari was disgusting, and I wanted to bring this up because I think this is one of our key scriptures that we lead with,
I
right?
don't think
Is
I heard this.
you have so India.Arie, she made her feelings known about Young Miami's song, her song highlighting and big upping, boosting and stealing, where are my boosters and um, whatever. At the video takes place. So when you get a chance, just look up Young Miami's video, spin that. Everybody's talking about it. The video, and this is why I say this is the difference between us and when people are in the world. We don't. The video takes place in the strip club, so I don't know what people expect here. I mean, do they expect this to? I mean, she's not a paragon of virtue, but India.Arie came out and said that the music means things. She says that she thinks that the endorsing of stealing and boosting and all these things that are being highlighted in the song are problematic for our culture and for people. And she and Trick Daddy came out and made a video cussing her, calling her all kind of old bees and raggedy bees, and said she was jealous of the young lady. The young lady is India.Arie is old enough to be her mother. It is just to me a direct attempt to pit older women against younger women, number one, and then to attack a woman for doing exactly what she is supposed to do, what Titus calls for her to do, right? As
Mm-hmm.
being a senior woman, to teach the younger women and the children. So she's fulfilling her role and her obligation. And so here, let me show you. I can show you this one image. There is a example of a woman who is a booster. Her and her daughter are stealing, and they're known criminals. And they are dead. She's on the video dancing to Young Miami's song "Spin That." Right. So these purses they boosted from the Louis Vuitton store.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so I asked the question: is this influence like so? Influencers don't. So they want, when it comes to getting endorsements and deals, they want to be influencers. They're like, look at how I can move the crowd. Look at how I can get people to spend money. Now you want to be an influencer. But when it comes to holding accountability for how people are taking your music or the things that you creating, using it, well, it's not my responsibility. Trick Daddy and Luke go on to say that you need to raise your kids. Well, everybody isn't raising their kids, and that's why people like India.Arie come out with messages, because there is somebody who may receive it from them. And sometimes people can receive it from celebrities and not their own parents. People get but the message has to at least be out there. The truth is out there. So she was, to me, doing what she's supposed to do as a younger woman and trying to be a teacher of good things. And I literally see people attacking her, calling
Wow.
her names, saying that she's jealous. I mean, this whole thing has brought up issues of colorism, all of it. Like, you literally see this girl, and they go to the store. He just showed her that purse. She puts it on her arm. I don't know how he missed it, but he's just obviously distracted. Then you watch them leave out. She's gonna hand her off the
Mm.
bags, and she's gonna walk out with the bags, and they're the one. And this is the mother and daughter duo who
Mm.
this is what they do, and they were singing and carrying on to this Spin That song. So and there they are. And so when people see that image of them, they're like, hey, they have the look that I want. So I don't see anything wrong with it. I'm going to do that. And I think Indiari saying something about it, there was nothing wrong with what she said. If you don't agree, that's fine. But to attack her and to try to turn it into a her versus young women and Miami, he told her to kiss the ass of every woman in Miami. It was really a disgusting rant. And so I
Wow.
talked about that. So yeah, so that's where we are this week. So wow, can you believe it's been an hour already? I just
Oh,
wanted to
what?
touch on those. I said it's been an hour already.
Wow. That's shocking too.
Yeah, I just really wanted to touch on those things a little bit because I know we talk about leadership a lot here, but these are things that I think are important when it comes to because these are leadership issues as well. And when we talk about issues that we want to see our people speak out on, and I believe in media, we all have a responsibility to talk about. I really tried to talk about certain things, but there are some topics I have been reluctant to speak on because, especially open investigations, because the news changes so rapidly. There's always information. You people make a lot of assumptions, and we just don't know all the facts. So even now, everything I said is allegedly because I'm saying I believe those kids know what happened to Nolan. I don't know that for the fact. I don't know because I don't have all the facts. It's just the contradictions are problematic for all of us, and we all just want some answers. We want the family to have peace and be able to. From Kendrick's family, we pray for them, and we want to see them finally get peace because 13 years later, and to still not have questions and to have their case dismissed by a judge who throws out the case on procedural issues, not on the merits of the case. And after he throws it out, gaslights them by saying, I still have some concerns about the case. It's the gaslighting. And so they filed an appeal and a complaint against the judge because they're saying that the throwing out of the case was unconstitutional. So they still haven't got justice. This family hasn't got. We just want to know what happened to Nolan. People calling him coons and saying he's a swirler or whatever. All of that is irrelevant. This young man is dead, and we just want to know because at the end of the day, when it comes to getting justice, when a community that is already being targeted, harassed, we know the federal government is rolling back the help that you did receive. Like in the case, all these changes coming out of the EEOC from this administration, like no longer investigating disparate impact. So that means most of the times it's hard for an employee to file discrimination charges in any way because they're hard to prove. Most of the time you can't prove them because you don't have access to the information. That is why if you pay attention and you notice, most of the people who file discrimination lawsuits, except for in a case where it's just outright discrimination, where they're being targeted and discriminatory things are being said to them. But like I'm talking about the paperwork side of it, it's often people in leadership who are able to successfully bring those cases because they have access to the paperwork in a way that a regular worker doesn't. But a lot of times a regular worker is able to identify the systems like you can, because in the case of the Workday situation, for example, that Mosby guy was able to identify after applying for 100 jobs that used the Workday system despite having a degree from Morehouse and being declined for every position, sometimes within hours or in the middle of the night at strange hours when nobody is open. It's automated. So he was able to bring that suit because it illustrated disparate impact. Well, you're not going to be able to do that through the EEOC anymore. You're not going to be able to get that discovery anymore. You'd have to hire a private attorney, which is a barrier for the average working class person, because unless you can get a attorney to take your case on a contingency basis, that means they really believe that they have an excellent case for them to want to dedicate that time and those hours to that case. you are on your own. And when you have an attorney charging $400 and $500 an hour, the average working man can't afford that. So that is a systemic barrier that has been put in place. These things are important. So, hey, Char. So, when you guys get a chance, if you haven't read my article on Substack or on the Working Class Chronicles page on Facebook on the algorithm of keeping you out of positions, please go do that, because it's real, you know. And now that the EEOC is no longer going to be investigating those cases, that is another hurdle that we are going to have to deal with in our community. Period. It's just another blow to trying to get justice in this unjust system as it is. So, Char is always supporting. I appreciate her, even on Substack. If you guys haven't followed me on Substack, I'm gonna have to add that to the description. But yeah, people are just asking legitimate questions, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I just say we pray for the families, and stop attacking the families, and stop attacking him. If you want to talk about the dating preferences and all that stuff, fine, do that later. But right now, I just feel like it's irrelevant, and now is not the time. And for the people who are making an argument, well, he wouldn't have fought for you. I don't know. We don't know what he supported or if he was anti-Black, all the things that he's being accused of. You don't know that. And if you do know it, then fine. But at the end of the day, I will repeat it. The civil rights movement didn't happen because everybody was on board. Civil rights was fought for by people who actively, Black people who actively fought against you fighting for justice. Yeah, there were Clarence Thomases then too. So, and we had other names for them and all of that. So all I'm saying is this is larger than that. We want justice for anybody that deserves it. That's the way it is. If you're fighting for justice on your job, when you unionize, you always have people who work there who actively work against their own best interests. Stop attacking the family. Just let them. Everybody has to figure this out. You have any final words, Zell?
No, I do not. I'm actually really looking forward to following this case and finding out more about it, more details, because I do believe there's gonna be some discovery here. I
Yeah,
think a lot
I
is going
think
to come
so
out,
too.
but it may take a while. It may take a while, but I think there's going to be a lot that comes out about this.
Yeah, and if it was not for, whether we like them or not, for the Ben Crump and Al Sharpton involvement, you probably wouldn't get as much press coverage as they're getting right now. So it's a
Right.
strategic decision that a lot of people make to call them in when they're trying to look for justice. It doesn't matter if you
Hmm.
like them or not. They bring the media, and that's what they want right
Right.
now. They want all the eyes and pressure on that local sheriff's office that they can get, and they know they needed
Hmm.
it, because as soon as the body was recovered, the sheriff immediately came out and said, "Nothing to see here." How are you making that determination and you haven't even investigated yet? You haven't even got an
Exactly.
autopsy back yet. So they already know what barriers they face. And hey, this is Mississippi. So that being said,
Exactly.
keep in mind them not saying that it's a racial issue. It more than likely is strategic. And that boy coming on there interviewing with TMC saying it's not a racial issue. A lot of times where everybody's saying, "Oh, they cooning," a lot of times it ain't cooning. It's strategic. It's, hey, we live here. We still have to be here, and we are not trying to have a whole community. This is a predominantly white community attacking us. They don't want that. And if any type of racial uprising occurs, they are already going to be blamed for it. So they're trying to move slowly and methodically before they start making any accusations. You guys just have to think about the people who are actually living in that community and who are there, versus, because it's easy to say what people should do when you're sitting on social media and you don't work in a corporate America anymore. You don't have kids in the school system like that anymore. It's easy to
Hmm.
shoot on somebody when they know they got to send kids to school, and you have angered a whole community. They already catching smoke being Black as it is. They're trying to move carefully. And that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Shalom. Shabbat shalom, y'all.
Shalom.
Listen.